Nero, just hearing his name makes you think of a mean emperor, a cruel and wasteful ruler who played music while Rome burned. History paints him as a monster, a man obsessed with power and driven by madness. But is this really true? Was Nero really as evil as everyone says? Or is there more to his story, a better way to understand the man behind the myth? This video explores Nero's life, looking closely at his time as emperor and the things that shaped how we remember him. From his fancy upbringing to his dramatic downfall, we'll look at what made him the emperor he was. We'll separate fact from fiction, checking the history books and questioning the usual stories about Nero that have been around for centuries. Our journey takes us back to ancient Rome, a time of great power and tricky politics. We'll see the Roman Empire at its most impressive and the trouble that was brewing underneath. Through Nero's life, we'll learn more about the Roman world, its values, its problems, and the people who shaped its future. Join us as we uncover the mystery of Nero, the young emperor who took the throne with the weight of an empire on his shoulders. Born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus in 37 CE, Nero's birth was anything but normal. He was born into a world of great power and privilege as a member of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, Rome's first imperial family. His family tree connected him to some of the most important people in Roman history, including Augustus, who started the Roman Empire, and Julius Caesar, the famous general and politician. But even though his family was famous, Nero's early life was full of instability and sadness. His father, Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus, was known for being mean and cruel. He died when Nero was only 3, leaving the young boy with his ambitious mother, Agrippina the Younger. Agrippina, Emperor Caligula's sister, was a very ambitious and powerful woman. She knew how powerful her son could be and was determined to make him the next emperor. So she married her uncle, Emperor Claudius. This made Nero Claudius's adopted son and heir, putting him in line for the throne. Agrippina's clever political moves secured her son's future, but it wasn't easy. Nero's childhood was filled with his mother's schemes and the constant danger of the imperial court. Surrounded by secrets and betrayal, he had a privileged but lonely upbringing. His teachers included the famous philosopher Seneca, who taught him to love learning and the arts. In 54 CE, when Nero was only 17, things changed dramatically. Emperor Claudius died mysteriously, and many people thought Agrippina had something to do with it. Nero quickly became emperor, declared by the Praetorian Guard, the special soldiers who protected the emperor. His rise to power showed how ambitious and politically clever his mother was. Agrippina had carefully prepared for this moment, getting rid of rivals and making friends with important Romans, but she didn't have complete control over her son. As Nero grew up, he didn't like his mother controlling him. He wanted to be in charge himself. The first few years of Nero's reign were a careful balancing act between the young emperor and his powerful mother. Agrippina, used to being in charge, kept getting involved in the government, which annoyed Nero more and more. This fight between mother and son would have terrible consequences, eventually leading to a very sad and violent ending. Nero, wanting to prove he was a good ruler, surrounded himself with advisors who encouraged his ambitions and let him do what he wanted. He tried to be popular with the Roman people, lowering taxes and building public projects. The first 5 years of Nero's reign are often seen as a time of peace and good fortune for the Roman Empire. During this time, Nero ruled fairly well and focused on diplomacy, which made many people in the empire like him. He tried to be different from the cruel emperors who came before him, Caligula and Tiberius. Nero's love of the arts grew during this time. He was a talented poet, musician, and actor, and he supported cultural events across the empire. His reign saw a lot of great literature, music, and theatre because Nero wanted to be known as a supporter of the arts and Roman culture. But under this appearance of stability and good times, problems were starting. His personal life was full of gossip and scandals, and he started acting strangely and unpredictably. The power struggle with his mother was still going on, threatening to explode. As Nero's reign continued, he became more isolated from his advisors and more reliant on a small group of friends who encouraged his bad habits. The seeds of tyranny were planted, setting the stage for the dark times that would define his rule. In 64 CE, disaster struck Rome. A huge fire ripped through the city, burning for 9 days and nights and leaving most of the capital in ruins. The Great Fire of Rome, as it's known, was one of the worst disasters in the city's history, destroying temples, homes, and countless works of art. Historians still debate what started the fire. Some say it was an accident in the shops near the Circus Maximus, while others think someone set it on purpose. Rumours flew around the ruined city, accusing Nero himself of starting the fire. The Roman historian Tacitus wrote that Nero was out of town in Antium when the fire started, but came back to Rome to help. However, Tacitus and other historians at the time said Nero heartlessly played his lyre and sang songs about the destruction of Troy while the city burned. This image of Nero fiddling while Rome burned, probably not true, has become a famous story. Whether Nero started the fire or just didn't do enough to stop it, the Great Fire of Rome was a turning point in his reign. It made people angry and suspicious of him, hurting his reputation and casting a dark shadow over the rest of his rule. While Rome was still smouldering from the fire, trouble was brewing on the edge of the Roman Empire. In Britannia, which is now England, people were angry with Roman rule. The Iceni, a tribe led by their brave queen Boudicca, revolted against the Romans in a furious uprising that shook the province. The Iceni rebellion started because Roman soldiers treated Boudicca and her daughters very badly. Angry about the injustice and wanting revenge, Boudicca rallied the Iceni and other unhappy tribes. The rebels, fueled by their anger, attacked the countryside, destroying everything in their path. Roman settlements were sacked and burned, and Roman citizens were killed. Boudicca's forces, winning at first, seemed unstoppable. The rebellion shocked the Roman Empire, threatening to undo years of Roman conquest. Nero, busy with the aftermath of the fire, didn't realize how serious the uprising was at first. But he soon understood the danger and sent his best general, Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, to stop the rebellion. This set the stage for a bloody battle that would decide the future of Roman rule in Britannia. All right, guys, let's talk about what happened after Boudicca's rebellion. Sadly, her army lost that big battle, and things were really tough in Britain. Everything was a mess, and the Romans were really angry. They wanted everyone to know they were still in charge. The Roman general, Suetonius, he became a big hero back in Rome. He wasted no time, going after anyone who was still against them. The Roman soldiers were brutal. They attacked anyone who helped Boudicca. They burned down villages and took people as prisoners or worse. The tribes that were once so brave and strong were beaten. The Romans punished them so harshly that they lost their will to fight back. When the Emperor Nero heard about all this, he was pleased. He thought it proved how powerful Rome was. But the way the Romans acted, being so cruel, it made a lot of people secretly hate them even more. So Boudicca's rebellion was over, but things would never be the same. Even though the Romans had won, everyone remembered how fiercely the Britons fought for their freedom. Hey everyone! So after Boudicca caused all that trouble in Britain, Nero was back in Rome, and he had some big plans. He wanted to be remembered forever, and he decided the best way to do that was to build. One of his biggest projects was something called the Domus Aurea, which means Golden House. Fancy, right? After a huge fire in Rome, Nero took a bunch of land and built this massive palace. It was super impressive, with beautiful rooms, amazing paintings on the walls, and huge gardens. Get this, it even had a fake lake and a giant statue of Nero himself. We're talking 30 meters tall. That's like 10 giraffes stacked on top of each other. But Nero wasn't done. Oh no, he had even bigger ideas. He wanted to rebuild Rome, make it even fancier and more impressive. He made the streets wider and built new buildings with cool designs. It sounds pretty good so far, right? Well, here's the catch. All this building cost her of money, so much money that Nero had to raise taxes, and that made a lot of people angry. They thought he was spending way too much on himself and not caring about them. They thought he was getting a little too big for his britches, you know. Nero wanted to be remembered as this amazing builder, but all that spending just made people dislike him even more. He was so focused on making himself look good, he didn't see the trouble brewing. Things were about to get much worse for him and everyone else in Rome. While Nero was busy with his grand architectural projects, he also understood the importance of keeping the public entertained. Enter the grand spectacles and games. Nero was known for organizing lavish public events, including gladiatorial games, chariot races, and theatrical performances. These events were not just for entertainment, they were a way for Nero to connect with the people and maintain their favor. One of the most famous events was the Neronia, a festival he established that included music, poetry, and athletic competitions. Nero himself participated, often taking center stage in musical and theatrical performances. He fancied himself a talented artist and believed that his participation would endear him to the masses. Imagine the Emperor of Rome strumming a lyre and singing in front of thousands. But this constant need for adoration and applause came with its own set of problems. While some people were genuinely entertained and even impressed by Nero's performances, others saw it as unbecoming of an emperor. To them it was another sign of Nero's vanity and his detachment from the serious responsibilities of ruling an empire. Nero's public image was a double-edged sword. On one hand, he managed to keep the people entertained and distracted from the empire's growing problems. On the other hand, his extravagant displays and focus on personal glory further alienated the Senate and the upper echelons of Roman society. They saw a ruler more concerned with his own fame than with the welfare of Rome. As Nero continued to indulge in grand spectacles, the seeds of discontent were being sown among those who felt neglected and overtaxed. Little did Nero know the very people he sought to entertain and impress would soon become the source of his greatest challenges. From the glitz and glamour of public games to the shadows of political intrigue, Nero's reign was a complex tapestry of contrasts. And as we'll see in the next chapter, not everyone was content to sit back and watch the show. As Nero's reign continued, the weight of his actions began to catch up with him. The once powerful emperor found himself increasingly isolated, as his erratic behavior and brutal policies alienated the Senate, the military, and the people of Rome. In 68 AD, a series of revolts erupted across the empire. The most significant of these was led by Gaius Julius Vindex, the governor of Gallia Lugdunensis. Although Vindex's rebellion was ultimately crushed, it set off a chain reaction that would lead to Nero's downfall. The Senate declared Nero a public enemy, and the Praetorian Guard, once his staunch supporters, turned against him. Nero fled Rome, seeking refuge in the villa of his freedman Phaon. As the Senate's forces closed in, Nero realized that his capture was inevitable. Desperate and despondent, he resolved to take his own life. On June 9th, 68 AD, with the help of his loyal secretary Epaphroditos, Nero ended his life, uttering his famous last words, "Qualis artifex pereo," what an artist dies in me. Nero's death marked the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, plunging Rome into a year of civil war known as the Year of the Four Emperors. While his reign is often remembered for its tyranny and excess, Nero's complex legacy continues to be the subject of debate among historians. His final days serve as a poignant reminder of the fragility of power and the consequences of unchecked ambition. As we reflect on Nero's life and death, we are left to ponder the intricate tapestry of history and the enduring impact of those who have shaped it, for better or worse.